Good hello, class. I've got a new slogan. It's a personal slogan. What do you think? Maybe put that right over my head there. 100%. I don't know. You think I'm up to 100%? I'd be a little surprised. This was on a bottle of energy drink that my wife loves real much. It's called Guru. 100% crap-free. Yeah, that's pretty nice. That's promo for that product. Hi, well, here we go. Here's a component of the environment. We just talked about living systems and the importance of interacting with the environment from that biological analogy perspective. And so what we do now is look at some components of that environment. And the first thing we look at is the competitive environment. So we talked about competition back when we talked about the history of marketing. We mentioned that coming out of the economic roots that we were going to talk about types of competition from an economist perspective. And yeah, that's right. And we said we're going to do that. But then we're going to embellish on that a little bit and look at a more marketing kind of orientation with regard to competition. And we said, like in 1985, it was a big deal in marketing. And, it was a hot deal then, but it's an important deal still. It's not the hottest deal, but okay. So competition, that component of the environment. And we're still looking at economic kind of things and competitive kind of things, but they were a big deal back a while back. Here's the outline that I'm dealing with. Competition. This component of the business environment is of utmost importance. One view of competition to consider is types. This is from an economist perspective, okay? Pure competition, monopolistic, oligopoly. Yeah, okay, so there it is. You can't read that, but that's to motivate you to get your hot little paws on a copy of that, electronic or physical. So if you are ready, here we go, off to types of competition. And here's a little picture. It's my version of something you see in Appendix A. And so if you look at your syllabus, we're talking about that, that appendix, Appendix A, page 556 to 559. There's a diagram on 556. And here's my version of that diagram. And so we look at a little piece of Appendix A now, and we look at a little piece toward the end of the course. This is straight out economics, okay? So here we go. Let's see. So here we've got this diagram. We're going to look at types of competition. Don't confuse it with levels, but anyway, types. And we're going to look at some characteristics of these types of competition. Number of firms, product characteristics, price control, entry into the industry, just some simple things. And you'll see those on the diagram on page 556. So without further ado, let's take a look at the first type. I paused that. First type of competition, okay? And there it is, pure competition. This overhead, this diagram here might look homemade because it is, okay? So there's pure, C, pure competition. And so, and here's a picture, here's a picture of something that's supposed to represent pure competition. What could that be? Well, think about it. Here's pure competition. Number of firms, many. Small firms in the industry, maybe big, but many firms, could be small. The products the characteristics of the products are all similar or identical. Okay, that's the products in this kind of market. How is price determined? Well, supply and demand determines the price, and everybody knows what the prices are. They kind of have perfect knowledge. So everybody knows the price. And you can enter into that market and deal in that market right now. Right after class, you can go out there and deal in that market, okay? So, it's not just some idea, this idea of pure competition, not just some idea, but there are markets that operate this way. And this picture here is supposed to represent a market, a kind of market where you could participate. You could go out right after class, and yeah, okay, I know that looks like a plate of raviolis with marinara sauce. Okay, 7th grade art. What can I say? What markets can you participate in that are ostensibly purely competitive? Well, that was supposed to be, it's kind of sparkling and stuff, and it's the closest thing I could come. You see the tip of that stick I got pointing there? It's gold colored. That's supposed to be gold, something like gold or silver or something like that. You could go out and buy gold. Everybody knows the price of gold. And you can participate in it. An outfit like you could participate in that marketplace. So silver, gold, but commodities too. Wheat and beef and soybeans and that kind of stuff. And ostensibly, the stock market is a purely competitive marketplace. So that's one type, from an economics perspective, that's one type of competition. Okay? And like I said, the diagram on 556, this is my version of that, okay? I think the art is getting a little better. Maybe this is more recognizable to you. Here we're at the type of competition called monopolistic competition. And here's where you see a lot of advertising in the media. This is where you see a lot of businesses competing. That picture right there, you can tell what that is. That's a tube of toothpaste. That's right, And so here it says, you're looking at characteristics. Number of firms, many large and small. You could be Procter & Gamble selling Crest, your good size outfit. Or you could be Pilu, selling Pilu, or Tom's of Maine, whatever, is that the name of selling their branded toothpaste. And, so large and small, and the products are different. Here under pure competition, identical or similar. Here, they're different. Hey, is Pilu different than Crest? Yeah. Pilu's got ground up branches of the Salvador Presica tree in it. Crest doesn't. And so you have some differences. And you think about those differences between products. They could be real or perceived differences. How about that? They're real or perceived. Back to the idea, we talk about needs and wants. Needs, want, real or lack or deficiency, real or perceived. Perceptions are important. What you think about things is important. So the products, monopolistic competition, they're different. They're different. And real or perceived differences. And because of those differences, you've got some control over price. I mean, there's some boundaries there, I expect, but you got some control. Pilu can charge whatever, whatever the market will bear for ground up branches in the toothpaste. Pilu can do that, okay? They got some control. An entry into the industry. fairly easy. I mean, I don't know how big the Pilu folks are or Tom's of Maine, but they're not Procter and Gamble, you know, and they can, it's fairly easy. So that's another type of competition. You see a lot of advertising in that arena. Okay. I think the artwork is getting better as we move along. Look at that. Hey, it looks like a car, sort of a Volkswagen Beetleish sort of thing. And so here's oligopoly. Only a few firms in these businesses because of the huge capital requirement, right? So there's only a few. The products could be similar or different. And, you know, I've got pictures of the front end of little sedan cars from some year recently. A whole different set of different brands and just a head-on picture of little sedans. Geez, they all look alike, okay? So they could be similar or different. You think about distinctive vehicles that stand out relative to the crowd. So there's some product can be similar or different. Price control, a lot of price control because there's so few competing options. So a lot of price control. And entry into the industry is hard because of the capital outlay. Yeah, later on we're going to talk about the next lecture is going to talk about legal political things. We're going to talk about antitrust. A lot of antitrust happens right here. If there's antitrust suits about tendencies of organizations to monopolize markets, which is, not the way we want markets to run in the US. A lot of it's right here under oligopoly. That's when you see those kinds of litigation. So most of what you see in the marketplace, a lot of monopolistic and then oligopoly, these two categories here, that's what you see advertised, talked about in the marketplace. So oligopoly, let's see. Hang on. And then monopoly. Monopoly is the way we do business in the US. Monopolies are regulated. They're given the US seal of approval, okay? And so the idea of a monopoly, there's only one option. And you think about public utilities, electric power, natural gas, stuff like that, okay? There's only one. There's no substitute. They're regulated. There's no way you're going to enter those industries. They're closed off, right? Essentially. So you got those public utility kind of things and other operations that are given the U.S. seal of approval as approved monopolies. But there are also monopolies allowed for a time. What am I getting at? How about patents? Yeah, to reward people for the labors they put into developing something. How about copyrights? Yeah, to reward folks for creative things they've come up with, okay? Licensing is kind of, for doctors and whatever else, electricians. Licensing is kind of a form of monopoly, kind of controlling who's in the business. So, you got the idea of utilities, but also you can think about patents, copyrights, and those kind of things where you've allowed a monopoly for a period of time. Okay. There we go. Back to the diagram of 556, and this is my version of that. Now, you can compete at different ends of this system. Okay, what am I getting at with that? You can compete at the input end of a system. Back to that living system idea. You can compete for personnel. So I'm kind of moving down here. Another view, I'm getting close to this. You can read that, right? Another view of competition is to consider the levels. So you can compete at the input end of a system for personnel, raw materials. How about factory locations, retail sites, whatever, suppliers? So you can compete at that end of things, input into the system. But this idea of levels of competition is thinking about competition on the output end of the system, competing for customers, clients, patients, receiving enders of whatever kind. And so what I put together is a picture of levels of competition, and I'm going to link it up to the textbook in a spot in the textbook that kind of does what I'm doing here, except I do it better. No brag, just a fact. So I'll link that up. So here we go to look at this diagram that you can see here a little more closely and show you where I am in the diagram. Let's see if how this shows up. Let's take a peek. Well, there it is. Outline, it says, and move it in a little closer. And here's what I'm proposing as you look at this diagram. I'm proposing that competition, let me show you here. Competition goes all the way back to this mess. Okay, I did this and didn't want to redo it. So what's it say? Here's the important thing. This smudge right here says competition on the output end goes all the way back to basic needs and wants that folks have, those lacks or deficiencies, and wants being things you can learn to, ways to meet needs. It goes all the way back, because here's the idea, and especially when you think of consumers, you have scarce resources of time, of money, of energy. You have scarce resources, and you have to consider allocating those resources against competing items. And I'm proposing here, and the book kind of does something similar, that those competing items go all the way back to basic needs and wants that you might have. Over here, I've scribbled out an example that says, maybe at this need-want level, these fundamental kind of enduring over time items, you have a need for, that smudge says, education, ED, period. Okay, that's education. You might have a need for transportation, that's trans with a period. That smudge is almost unreadable. That one's supposed to say entertainment. So here at this need-want level, you have these competing needs, wants. As an example, broad categories of needs: education, transportation, entertainment. And competition starts back there at that level. What I'm saying here, you can kind of see it. Can I adjust that while you're watching? I kind of hate to, because I'll screw something up, and then that says, let's say that at this point in time, you have a need for transportation. So that one kind of wins out. They're competing. These need level items are competing with each other. And at this point in time, transportation wins out. Now we've moved to another level of competition. And here we're saying, here's different product class, broad categories of items that can meet your need for transportation. And if I asked you to come up with some, you'd say stuff like, someone would say, how about, here it is. What's that say? Pub, trans. PUB period, trans period. Public transportation. Yeah, that's one way of meeting your need. These are broad categories of ways of meeting your need for transportation. How about a car? CAR is what that is. How about a bicycle? How about motor? What's that say? Motor? Yeah, like a motorbike. You know, they could be competing with each other. So we've got different ways of meeting our needs for transportation. Public trans, automobiles, bikes, motorcycles, you know, that kind of thing. Let's say at this level, and it says here, bike. Let's say bikes win out as those various product class items are competing with one another. Now we're down to different, it says product form. Product form. Okay, let me move something a little bit here just to hide that just a little bit because I don't want to. Okay, product form and different types of bicycles. Okay, first, a unicycle is not a bicycle. You just learned something important today. Everything else aside, you know, a unicycle is not a bicycle. Uni is not bike. Okay, so these are bicycles. And so these smudges over here, I could say, what are the different types of bicycles? And you would say, you wouldn't say unicycle, you'd say, that says BMX. Sure it does. This says mountain. That says road. That's, what the heck does that say? Fixed? That says cruiser. How about a tandem? A tandem bike's a bike. You could go cruising with your sweetie on a tandem. So here, okay. So what do we got? We got competing needs. We decide transportation is what's the most pressing at this point in time. We've got competing product classes, ways to meet our need for transportation. We decide a bicycle looks like the way to go. And here we got these different competing bicycle forms, types of bicycle, forms of bicycles. And at this point, we say mountain bikes win. Okay, that's what we're going for. Decide a bike, mountain bike, not a road, not a tandem, not a cruiser. We're going with a mountain bike. And then I would ask you, what are the competing brands of mountain bikes? Who makes mountain bikes? And you would say Trek and Specialized and Huffy and Schwinn and Giant and Peugeot, I don't know, Cannondale, whatever. You had mentioned a lot of different brands of mountain bikes. If you look down the left-hand side of this diagram, this is left, this is right, okay, this is left. Here it says indirect competition and direct competition. The point, one of the points of this is, first, competition isn't just at the direct brand level. You think about the battle of the brands, you know, Trek versus Specialized versus Cannondale versus whoever, you know, slugging it out in the marketplace. Yeah, that's part of competition. That's part of it. That's the brand level down here. That's like sort of like the tip of the iceberg of competition. That's what you see. That's what you think about. But here's all this other competition below the surface, like the iceberg below the surface, and it says indirect competition. Indirect. We got different forms of bicycles, BMX versus road versus cruiser versus mountain. We got different product classes competing with each other, public trans, cars, bikes, motorcycles, to satisfy the basic needs that are competing with one another, education, transportation. And as an example, So that's what this is trying to, this is trying to convey. I'll sum it up here in a bit. But first, let me link it up to the textbook. In your textbook, if you remember that textbook, it looks something like that. There it is, 19th edition, basic marketing. Who we got? Peralta, and Cannon, and McCarthy. Okay. They talk about generic markets. It's sort of like, generic markets are sort of like product class. Sort of, on page 89, okay? They talk about generic markets. And then they talk about product markets, which are sort of like product form, sort of, on page 89. And then there's an exhibit 4-2, maybe 3, this is all in chapter 4. 4-2, yeah, maybe 4-3. They kind of get at this, but you know what? This is a lot clearer, I believe, in my humble opinion. This is a lot clearer, a lot more straightforward than what you see in the textbook. So there's some stuff that links what's going on here, kind of, to something you see in the textbook, but this is kind of more understandable. Here's a question. Have you seen ad campaigns back here at the need-want level? And everybody said, yeah, how about the Beef Council? How about dairy farmers? How about spending your money on education or a vacation or stuff like that? You see it. You see stuff all the way back. You see it at the need-want level, and maybe then maybe a product class level, like the beef. Maybe that's where the Beef Council and dairy farmers are connected there. So you see it. You see ad campaigns back here: need, want, education, vacation, whatever. Product class like Beef Council, dairy farmers, who else? Yeah, well, that kind of idea. Okay. So, in sum, what's the grand finale here? What does levels of competition tell us about competition? What does levels of competition tell us about competition? It tells us that competition isn't just at the brand level, the battle of the brands. It's not just at the direct level of competition, but the competition goes all the way back: product form, product class, all the way back to needs and wants. Marketers may have to consider competition that is occurring throughout this whole model, all levels of competition. And back to the idea, the iceberg, direct competition is just a tip, just on the surface. There's a lot of competition, this indirect level of competition that's below the surface, okay? And this applies to industrial markets, to organizational markets, as they prioritize needs and wants and look for need-satisfying products. But here we used consumer markets as the main application, the main concern that we have when thinking about this idea of levels of competition. So should someone ask you about this outline right here, okay, don't confuse types, an economist perspective on competition, with levels, more of a marketer's perspective on competition. Someone's going to ask you about that, like on some upcoming mini test, for sure. Okay. All right. Well, I hope that works for you, and it's a little shorter lecture. We'll see if we can give you another one to join it, so you're not cheated, right? Okay. Talk to you again real soon.